This video is brought to you by Expo Markers. You can erase them. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Mr. H on YouTube video. Today, we are going to be talking about the history of ancient Egypt. So this will cover a lot of Egypt before even AD. So it's a lot of BC timelines as we go through the history of ancient Egypt. Keep in mind that all of this happened way long ago. Okay, so let's get started by talking about Egypt. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and give this video a like so that we can start growing our little community. That would be fun. Please do it. Anyway, let's talk about ancient Egypt. It is nicknamed the Gift of the Nile because the Nile is really important to the history of Egypt. Growing along the coastlines of the Nile River, the Egyptian civilization began mostly as nomads who came and discovered the fertile valleys of the Nile River. What made the Nile River so important was that it flooded every year. It provided fertile soil for crops when the silt from the bottom of the riverbed would be full of vitamins and minerals would flood the earth. This truly was the lifeline for Egypt. It was used as transportation, used for irrigation. It flowed, interestingly, south to north as it is higher in the highlands south than it is in the lowlands north. The mouth of the river was known as the Delta of the Nile. Okay? Food was really important, and the growing of food was really important to the Egyptian lifestyle. Irrigation systems watered crops. The main crops for Egypt were barley, wheat, and flax, and the main food was bread, fish, vegetables, and fruit. When it came to the eating of meat, that was usually reserved only for the wealthy classes. But what was the social hierarchy? Well, at the very top was the pharaoh, king of Egypt, seen as both a god and as a speaker for the gods of Egypt. Below him were people such as the high priests and noblemen. These were both religious and political leaders of Egyptian life. After them were the more skilled jobs such as doctors and scribes and craftsmen. Underneath them were the less skilled, such as the farmers, the workers, the soldiers, and then finally, under everybody, were slaves. Organization of Egyptian lifestyle was around the language of Egypt. Egyptians developed the form of picture or symbol writing known as hieroglyphics. They developed this language in order to keep track of government records and laws, taxes, and the passage of time. The Egyptian alphabet was made up of about 800 picture symbols called hieroglyphics. The word hieroglyphs means sacred writing. They had scribes, very similar to other ancient civilizations such as Mesopotamia. So, what would happen with the hieroglyphics is that they would carve them into the wall, which means that they are not having to deal with the problems that we have, which is time for our ad for our sponsor today. Hashtag not actually sponsored. That is Expo Markers. Has this ever happened to you? You're writing on the wall in your Sharpie, and all of a sudden you look around like, oh my goodness, look at all of my whiteboard, my beautiful whiteboard. It is gone. There is all just Sharpie stains everywhere. Someone help! Don't let this happen to you. Use Expo Markers. They're erasable, low on order. Subscribe to Mr. H on YouTube, and a pack of Expo Markers will magically appear like the Easter Bunny on your doorstep. Hashtag not really. Ad over. The pharaohs were seen as the king or ruler of Egypt, and they were also seen as a god. The life of an Egyptian was revolved around working for the pharaoh. When he died, the pharaoh was mummified and buried in a beautiful chamber along with his belongings, which led to the most famous aspect of Egyptian life, that is the pyramids. The pyramids were giant tombs, and they were meant to honor the legacy of the pharaohs. Egyptians believed in many gods. They were polytheistic. Such famous gods as Anubis, Horus, Osiris, and Ra. As we go through the process, the pharaohs in order to be preserved, would have to go through another famous aspect, which would be mummification. Egyptians believed that when people died, they moved on to another world. Since people needed their body in the afterlife, it would need to be preserved. So, first, most of the organs would be removed. They would take out the brain, they pick the body with natron, which is a salt mixture, and they would remove all the moisture. So basically, they made people jerky. After several weeks, they would apply oil, wrap the body in bandages, and place the body in a sarcophagus. They would put a decorated mask on the body. The body would be put in a chamber with all the things needed for the afterlife: food, riches. Unfortunately, for some of the servants of the pharaoh, usually they would be locked in the tomb as well. As Egypt developed, it went from a area for nomads in search of food as the dynasties developed. The most famous three sections of the Egyptian timeline is the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. The Old Kingdom was the age of the pyramids, where the most of the pyramids today were built. This was really the height of Egyptian power. The Middle Kingdom was a time period where trade became the center of the economy. And the New Kingdom was when Egypt really began to expand its borders outside of Egypt. However, by the time of Alexander the Great, Egypt had declined in power and was eventually conquered by several Greek soldiers that started the Ptolemaic dynasty. Egypt's biggest legacy really comes to us as their archaeological evidence, all of the historical output that they made, as well as being so sustaining. Their civilization really, from its beginning in 6000 BC, lasted as an independent kingdom pretty much all the way to 30 BC. That's almost almost 6,000 years of constant economic, cultural, and political output from a nation, which is a great accomplishment. What do you think? Comment below in Google Classroom with any questions that you might have. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you all very much. Have a good day.